Mary, Peter, Daniel, Rachel, or James? No doubt quite a few. How many do you know who are called Judas? No doubt you don't know even one. This is because there is really only one Judas, and because of his one evil deed, his name has the appeal of a garlic-eating skunk. The number one most popular first name for males in the United States for the last 100 years has been James. Judas is ranked at 25,549th. Judas didn't even make it onto the list of the world's most unpopular names because no one wants to call their child Judas. A user on a Reddit forum once asked the following question about the use of that name. Is the boy's name, Judas, still off limits in the Christian world? My in-laws are very Christian. My husband and I recently found out we're having a girl, so we aren't worried about boys' names. Except for the gender reveal party, we were thinking of having guests vote which gender they think it is. We'd have one column set up under the name Judith for our little girl, and Judas for a little boy that we aren't actually having. Personally, I think Judas is a beautiful name, but I don't have a good grasp on how much of a taboo that name is to super Christians. Any input? Here are some responses to the question from that same forum. I'm not even a Christian, and I still wouldn't give a child the name Judas. Judas is so well known as a traitor and a betrayer that I just don't think it's a usable name. I'm not a super Christian. I'm barely even a Christian anymore, and I definitely still feel like Judas is taboo. If I saw it on a potential list of names, I would assume the parents were trying to be edgy or specifically trying to goad religious members of their family. It's not even allowed to name your child Judas in Germany because it's not allowed to give your child a negative or insulting name. Never. It would be a very amusing plot line in a dark comedy, but less so if it happened in real life. 2,000 years ago, Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus of Nazareth. He counted Jesus as nothing but a bargaining chip to line his greedy pockets. Years of gracious words from divine lips fell on deaf ears. Judas was one of the original 12 disciples, an eyewitness to the raising of Lazarus. He heard Jesus call a dead man from the grave. He saw Jesus walking on the sea and calming the storm. He heard the story of the Good Samaritan, a man who bathed the stranger's wounds, took him to an inn, and promised the innkeeper that he would pay his bills. But all of that was eclipsed by Judas' love of money. Instead of loving the greatest of his neighbors, he betrayed him and handed him over to murderers. But Judas Iscariot wasn't the only one guilty of wrongdoing on that dark night. A confident Peter boasted that he would never forsake Jesus, but he openly denied him, cursed, and then left him to die in agony at the hands of his captors. In a sense, every one of the other disciples betrayed him as well. They were scattered like frightened sheep, and Jesus was left alone. The Roman soldiers beat Jesus, spat in his face, ripped out his beard, and mocked him by clothing him in a purple robe and placing a crown of thorns on his head. The chief priests called for the spilling of his precious blood, and like poisonous vipers, they hissed and then raised their heads for the kill. All hell had been let loose against the harmless lamb as he gave himself to the slaughter. Jesus had earlier been arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, a place where he often retreated with his disciples from the noise and confusion of the crowds. It was a place of peace and quiet, but it became a crime scene. An innocent man had not only been betrayed, he had been bound like a criminal and kidnapped to stand trial in a Roman court for crimes he didn't commit. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor under the emperor of Tiberius, was the judge and jury at Jesus' mock trial. As a Roman prefect, Pontius Pilate was granted the power of supreme judge, which meant that he had the sole authority to order a criminal's execution. His duty as a prefect included such mundane tasks as tax collection and managing construction projects. But perhaps his most crucial responsibility was that of maintaining law and order. Pontius Pilate attempted to do so by any means necessary. What he couldn't negotiate, he is said to have accomplished.